Hello again, this is Charlie Bellefontaine, and you're listening to the Chicagoland Housing Experts on WC. Patrick and Joey. Steve, if you don't mind, start off and give us your contact info.
Sure. Thank you, Charlie. Steve Davis with Real Brokerage, the Kamar Group. I help you buy, sell, invest in homes, and I'm the guru of the residential aspect.
Love it. Patrick?
Did he just say he's the guru
That's
of
correct.
the residential aspect?
Don't knock
He
it,
is the
just
guru.
go.
I'm going to second that motion.
Yep.
Can we
Don't be jealous.
get
Can
like?
we have someone introduce the motion?
Can you put that on your like your business card or like your?
I don't have a business card.
like a V card.
It's virtual.
It's going on your.
You can't
LinkedIn.
call it a V card. That's
V card means different things. these days.
exactly. Oh my God. Ask Tammy Miller that one. That was hilarious.
Hello, my name is
I'll tell you
Patrick
later.
Loftus. I'm a real estate lawyer. I am not the guru of anything. I'm just a
Yes,
real
you
estate
are.
lawyer. If you got real estate lawyer questions or you got real estate lawyer problems, well, go somewhere else with that. But you want to learn more about what I do, come find me on social media because I do fun stuff. Well, it's not that fun. It's lawyer stuff, but it's fun for me. Loftus_law on Instagram, at Loftus Law on that thing that's going away, TikTok. And I've just started posting YouTube shorts. So come
Yay.
see my shorts.
Oh, that just seems wrong.
Yeah, not the
Joey,
first person to
please
say that, I'm sure.
get us back on track.
Yeah, I'm the wrong dude to ask. Oh my God, that's loud.
A little bit louder
Joey
now.
Matthews. A little bit louder. Yeah, dude, I'm trying to turn my game down. It's crazy high. Anyway, Joey Matthews, NMLS 1230694, the VA Loan Nerd. You can find me on social media as at the VA Loan Nerd, at my website at thevaloannerd.com. Call or text me at 630-235-2405. And I guess I'm the mortgage nerd for a happy little group here. I'm no guru, but I'm certainly a nerd.
Joey, are you able to make loans?
Oh, can I? Yeah, no, for sure. FHA, USDA, conventional, jumbo, all of the loans. I just have a significant passion for VA because I have seen how screwed up lenders are in that sphere, and it needs to end. It's terrible. It's ridiculously bad.
He's not wrong.
No, and I want to
Mortgages
thank
are
you.
easy, man.
I want to give you a special public shout out. I know I had a client that is working with another mortgage broker, and they're getting a veteran's mortgage to both Army vets. And, they had questions. Now I learned a lot from you, and I shared those answers with them. And I know you're going to help them, even though you're not going to get the mortgage. But that's what makes you quality, all right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
when-
they slid into my DMs yesterday, too, and asked me about if VA loans were getting suspended yesterday. I was
Are
like,
they?
oh, and that's why... No, they sure aren't. They sure aren't. I've had so many messages, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. So I am still giving them guidance during this process,
Good.
and I will close it for the other LO, I'm sure. But, yeah, we're having a good time.
Why did
Loan
they think
officer.
that, though?
Why did they think that? Well, because I don't know the proper way to say the legal stuff. So PJ, just feel free to chime in on what happened yesterday or whatever day that was with Trump. Can you say that, and I'll go into why that does not affect mortgage.
I have been, for my own mental sanity, microdosing the news. So I don't really know
I have,
if
yeah.
I'm perfectly honest with you. Every time I open up a new browser tab, it will have like 3, you should read this thing, and it'll just have a picture of an orange face, and it'll be like, I'm not going to do that.
Orange face. Love it.
And so, I'm vaguely aware of some kind of pausing of federal loans, but as far as I'm aware, Joey, the federal government does not make loans in the VA, FHA, USDA conventional space. They are strictly in a guarantor role of some sort. So that would not stop anyone who is in the private sector who is making these loans from making a loan, right?
Man, I love that big sexy brain of yours, bro. I love it. Yes. So the VA, the FHA, USDA, they are not issuing loans. They are issuing insurance. They are issuing guarantees. This is not government money helping you buy your house. That is a completely separate subject altogether, right? That is private money funding your home, getting sold on the secondary market. and the insurance or the guarantee comes from the government. So it has nothing to do with a government loan.
Oh, and that's important. It probably is going to have to be said multiple times, and then.
Yeah,
And
it's
There's a lot of
sh-
fear mongering on the internet today.
Oh my
Yeah.
God! You want to get me set off? The next 4 years of our lives. All right. This is the news media, and yeah, I'm going after everybody. Okay, including where facts matter. This is, no matter what end
gentle
of the
here.
spectrum you are
I like
on,
these guys.
the best thing that ever happened to them is the thing that happened on November 5th, because
Yeah.
this is journalism on easy mode, okay? Because all they are going to do is feed us every dumb thing that comes out of Washington. The best thing you can do, and when I say you, I mean literally every single one of you, is to turn the volume way down. I'm not saying ignore it all.
No.
I'm just saying everything that is being fed to you by the news media, by and large, is meant to get a reaction out of you. It's not meant to inform you in as much it is to get you to click on stuff. Just know
Yeah,
that.
I'm going to disagree with the informed. They're going to inform you, but my whole thing is when it comes to those two people that were running, when I talk to those that support him versus me to support her, I can't tell you anything good about the guy. All right, everything that I hear, everything that I've learned, everything that I know makes me hate him.
He doesn't
All
drink.
right.
I mean, that's
no,
good for him. He's
but when
over
I-
6 foot tall.
But when I talk to, and
He's got a full head of hair.
I want to keep these people as my friends. When I talk to people who disagree with me politically, I ask them the same question. Can you tell me something good about, Kamala? And they're like, no, she's absolutely the most evil person in the world. That's what we're fed, and I think that's making your point. And we have to, and we only want to hear too. Stuff that it satisfies us, I think. But anyway, I don't want to really get into politics, even though this is a politics station.
Well, let me just
I
finish
know.
one. Let me
Oh,
finish
I
with
did,
one more
didn't I?
thing.
Yeah,
all
I
right?
don't get the last word, do I?
No, of course not, because I have more to say
Because
about
there's an
this.
attorney
But
on.
why is Joey Why is he so just like up in arms about the fact that the stories that are being told about this are only giving you half of the story? People, if you were being properly informed, you would see the story or you would read the story, and you wouldn't immediately go to Joey and be like, "Oh my God, is my VA loan still going to be able to be made? Is my FHA loan still going to be able to be made?" This is what I'm talking about. The headline gets written for the clicks, right?
Yeah.
For the clicks. It's not meant strictly to inform you. Yes, they will, and they can make the claim that there is information there, but it is being fed to us in
It's not
a
the whole
way.
truth.
It's not useful in the sense that it's just meant to tickle your brain cells in such a way
Provoke
that
an
you go
emotion.
click click click. Oh, I'm so mad. Don't fall into that trap, okay?
No.
But regardless of where you sit on the spectrum, the same stuff, you're being fed the same stuff, just in a slightly different twist, and it's making you mad, and you're clicking on stuff, and that's how they get you.
And that's why I've been tuning a lot of stuff off. I couldn't
Yeah.
agree more. But let's go back to the real estate stuff. And since we're on legal things, I know, Mr. Segway over here.
You should have seen Steve's face when you said, he's just like, finally.
I'm just not political. I don't care. I
No,
think it's
which
dumb
is good.
shit.
But here's one of the questions that
Oh,
came across.
come on!
Yeah, it's completely my fault.
Devin,
I
hit the
apologize.
button.
Devin's not
Here's
here.
one of the questions that came across I want to address.
Oops.
Somebody wants to bid on a foreclosure with an IRS liens, and they want advice. And the user is seeking legal advice on purchasing a foreclosure property in Illinois that has federal and state tax liens, inquiring about the potential risk and how to handle these liens and stuff. And I know I threw this at Patrick just so he could be a little bit prepared. And he's like, "Oh, that's an easy answer. Don't do it." I'm like, "Okay, why, Patrick? Why not do it? Or what are some of the things that they have to watch out for?"
All right, so a couple things. To strictly answer the question, in most cases, an IRS lien is going to be, what we would call a super lien. A foreclosure is meant to clean up the title, right? So You go through, you file a foreclosure case if you are a first mortgagee, and it's usually going to be a first mortgagee. If you don't know what that is, hey, find me on social media at Loftus_law on Instagram, at LoftusLaw on TikTok. So everyone past the first mortgagee. So when you foreclose, you're asking the court to order the sheriff to seize and sell the property to repay whatever is due on that loan.
Okay.
Once that loan is repaid, assuming there's anything left over, it will go to the next lien. So if there's a second mortgage or if there is something that is recorded after, it's typically going to be first in time, first in right. So whatever was recorded first is going to be paid first, and then second and third, and so on and so forth. Now that first in time, first in right does not apply to the federal government, because they get to make the rules and they go, you know what? We don't want the foreclosure process to wipe us out, because once the money runs out from the sheriff's sale, that's it. Everyone else with a lien on the property, you have a personal claim against that owner who owed you the money, but you no longer have any kind of right or interest in the property itself after the foreclosure sale is approved, and in that case is over.
Well, that seems like a good thing for the buyer.
For the buyer, sure, except that the federal lien doesn't go away because it's a super lien, and it's accepted from this rule where everything gets wiped out through the foreclosure. And so you
So
think
the
your
new buyer has to pay off the other person's taxes?
well, if you want to ever sell the house, then that lien has to and that's obviously not going to be something that most people are willing to do, unless you substantially discount the home, probably in the amount of the lien. So there's really no getting out of it. If you see a piece of property that is subject to any kind of federal encumbrance, it would be a very good idea to make darn sure. So if it's an arm's length sale outside of any kind of judicial process, fine. You make sure that the seller has some way of either paying off the lien, or you can get something called a certificate of discharge from the IRS as a seller. You can apply to them. You send them an inch-thick packet of documents, and IRS takes the position that I'd rather get something than nothing. So if I am going to net $100,000 from the sale of my home and I owe the IRS $200,000, they'll take that $100,000. So that's okay. You can work through that as a buyer. But in the context of a foreclosure, there's no one sitting there going, no problem, I'll take care of the IRS. All right. So it's real important that you take a look at that and you go, let's hit the brakes on this. And more broadly, if you are considering the person who asked this question, I'm going to assume, because they're asking this question, that they're not regularly involved in the purchase of foreclosure property. It probably sounds like a great little, hey, I'll sneak in distressed property even when the market is tight for sellers. This property is still distressed. I should be able to get a little bit better, at least a little bit better of a deal. All right. Here is the thing: is that there are people that do that every day of their lives for a living. They know exactly which properties are primed to go after. The vast majority of properties go back to the bank, because the bank has automatically a bid for whatever it is owed. Okay. And because most of the time that foreclosure sale isn't going to net enough money to pay anyone other than some portion of the first lien, then because their bid is so much more than anyone else would bid, who would want to own the property, it goes back to the bank. That's why, people kind of have in their minds as a shorthand that a foreclosure is the bank trying to take the property. That's practically what ends up happening most of the time, but that's not actually what the process is. There are some steps before the bank. And sometimes, let's say that for whatever, a lot of times what happens is, someone will pass away. They will have paid off a mortgage for 20, 25 years or something. There's really no one in their life to kind of take over or deal with that home, and so it does go into foreclosure. And then there is going to be some meat on that bone where a buyer can come in, but those are few and far between, and you are going to be in an extremely competitive process to purchase one of those homes. So it sounds easy. It is it is far from it.
Which one of you three? I know it's not me. So it's either the mortgage, the real estate, or the attorney. Which one of you three is going to recognize that situation exists?
Nobody.
How?
As a
Nobody.
foreclosure buyer, you're in there. You're advocating for yourself. Okay. And that's why it's so important. That's why the people who are doing this every day are the ones primarily who are going to be successful in that process. Once in a blue moon, you might find a property that just sort of falls in the middle, where it's not quite so obvious that it's just going to go back to the bank, but there's not quite enough meat on the bone for an investor to come in and make as much money as they need to make it make sense for them to deploy their money in that way. Boy, you're going to be spending a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of effort to thread that needle. If you've got time, energy, effort, and willingness, and it is something that excites you, go for it. But I'd rather just call Steve and be like, hey, I just need to buy a house.
Well, chime in. I mean, is this something that you would recognize when you're putting an offer in there?
I mean, of course, they always market as either foreclosure, short sale, so on, that kind of thing.
No, but the tax liens, the federal tax liens is what I was talking about.
I mean, he's describing something slightly different, but go ahead, Steve.
So, I would say, as far as the lien goes, I mean, I have had clients that wanted to buy a property before, and I said, listen, there's a lien on this. You're going to have to pay the lien off before you buy the house, or you buy the house. And I believe, Patrick, correct me, but I don't know enough about it to really get into great detail. I've done very few short sales, and I did one foreclosure in 18 years, and it's just because there wasn't really a thing when I got into the sale aspect of real estate. So, but I do know that if there is a lien on the property, in order to sell it, you have to pay off that lien. The IRS aspect, as far as if you owe money to the IRS, they can say, hey, we're going to come after your property and put a lien on it. So my understanding, just like any lien, is you have to pay it off in order to sell it. That's pretty much what I got there. But as far as like the aspect of everything that Patrick just said, I did not know half of that, and that's not my forte. Like, I'm not going to know the legal aspect to it. He is.
And I guess the
that's why
real
I call him.
question. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
I thought you were done. I guess my real question was more of a when or how, and Joey chime in, how does the buyer know how much and what type of lien there is? I know there's contractor liens, tax liens, property tax liens, for stuff like that. There's a bunch of different ones.
If you are participating in a foreclosure auction, you better know your stuff, okay? Because we don't have this situation that you're thinking about where we've got a group of professionals representing you. That is not the situation. Strictly in a foreclosure. This is not a
foreclosure specialist is very different than just a realtor.
And a foreclosure specialist is a real estate agent, right? Is what you're talking about?
No, I think he's talking about like someone who is
they specialize in foreclosures.
Like their business is seeking out properties that are in foreclosure, that are up for foreclosure auction, and they're bidding in the foreclosure auction. The foreclosure auction is not offering you any kind of warranties in terms of title, in terms of the fitness of the property. They have a property, you want to buy it, make a bid. That's it. Sure. So you need to know how to go down to the county clerk's office and search the records and find those liens. You need to figure out some way to know what's going on inside the property, and they're all kind of dark arts as far, because you don't get access to it. There's no hey, we're having an open house at this foreclosure auction property. And by the way, as often as that property will get scheduled for the foreclosure auction, it'll get bumped off for any number of reasons. And so the foreclosure auction is no place for a person who is trying to buy a house to live in it.
Joey, what do you do to find? I mean, obviously you have to protect the bank's money.
We at the end of the day, we need to make sure the property's being moved free and clear. Like, there's no lien. So everything that Patrick is saying and everything Steven's saying, like, we're not going to put a lien on the property when we know there's going to be a superior lien. That's why
that title
Patrick
insurance?
says a super lien. Title. So we have to have clear title. But I don't know. I would imagine an IRS lien would show up on title, right? Shot in the dark.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So we're not going to close on anything unless we are taking the first lien position on a property. Period.
Well, and if you're buying, and I'm strictly talking a foreclosure auction, you are either going to be having your own cash, someone else's cash, or a hard money loan that you can access right there and then. This is not a situation where you're getting a conventional FHA VA loan. Joey's not involved in that process. Now, there is a different scenario, and I thought that Steve was getting into, and that is where you have a bank-owned property. So as I said earlier, more often than not, the property ends up in the bank's hands, and that's where you'll see it being listed as bank-owned. It'll be listed as foreclosure property, however they want to characterize it. It's already been washed through that process. Everything has already been, and now you are, as a buyer, buying it more or less at a normal arm's length transaction. Now, what's likely to happen is they're going to go, it's as is, and as a bank, we've actively avoided knowing anything about the property's condition. So that's on you. You do get to do an inspection, but you're also going to get attached to the multi-board form that you'll submit as an offer. You'll get a 30-page bank addendum that wipes out all of your, most likely wipes out all of your rights as a buyer as far as due diligence. You'll get to do an inspection. If you still like the property, great. If not, I've seen occasions where they might consider either a credit or making some repairs if there's an active leak or there's something that's directly affecting the condition of the property and it's deteriorating it rapidly. Yeah, they'll get in there and they'll have the receiver that they've employed take care of that. But by and large, and the last one I can remember doing, my client got in there for the inspection and they got to the finished basement and it was just, you couldn't tell what any of the finishes were because it was just all black from the mold. And he comes back to me, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna need like 30 grand off of this. I'm just like, what? And then I saw the report and I go, oh yeah, that's easy. We go to the bank, we need off this price because now that we've seen that the basement is trashed, it's not worth what was offered. And the bank's like, well, we're done here. And that was it. So it's a different character of transaction when you are dealing, especially when you're dealing with a bank, any kind of entity that is not going to have the same motivations as your average seller. Don't ever try to apply common sense to what a bank should do. You will only end up in frustration and headache.
Okay, fair enough. Let's switch this up a little bit. This is more for Steve and Patrick. Somebody also sent us a note. They're considering putting their property up for sale, and they don't want to use a real estate agent. They're talking about doing it for sale by owner. All right, so they're contemplating selling their property without a broker to save on costs and seeking advice on the FSBO process in Chicago, including legal considerations. So, and I get it, Steve. This is like, I want the commission. That's not really what we do here, So talk to them. What are the risks? What are the rewards?
So when it comes to
Steve?
FSBO, also known as FSBO.
What did I say wrong?
It's just funny.
Oh, that just
tweeted
tweaks you,
again,
right?
yeah.
FSBO?
Yeah,
For
FSBO.
sale by owner.
That's
in
correct.
the business we call it, we say FSBO.
That's
Not
correct.
me. I'm FSBO.
SFAB. All right.
Behave. Steve. Talk so he doesn't.
I can't.
SFAB.
All right. So when a client or a potential seller wants to sell the property himself and so on, I give them the best of luck because here's the deal with the FSBO. The fact is that sure, you could try your own marketing. You could try to price the way you think you should price it. You can go ahead and try to, do everything, do all the showings, do this, do that, so on. The problem that I have run into so many times is the fact that they're like, well, I don't want to pay an agent because they're too expensive. Well, here's the thing. This is the way I would respond to that. I say, no, I totally understand that you want to go ahead and save all the money, and I get that, and I respect that. However, here's the question. if you sell it yourself, do you really know how you're going to sell it? How are you going to get the most exposure? How are you going to be able to bring the most buyers in? How are you going to be a professional negotiator?
You're talking marketing 101.
No,
Plan your
but-
work and work your plan.
Yeah, so like,
Do
are
you
you
have
any,
a plan?
Like, are you any of those? No, you're not. So here's the thing: you think you're going to save money, but when you sell your house for $600,000 and it's worth $650 or $675, you're not pricing it right, marketing right, anything. And here's the best thing: $600,000, right? What if I got you $670 and your closing costs after a nut sheet was only 25 grand? Now you do the math. $670 minus 25 grand is what? So you think you're getting a deal at $630, but you're not. So the fact is that if you try to do your own thing, a lot of times you're not going to do well. So hiring a professional is what you should do, because if you don't, then you're taking a chance. I had a client, a friend of mine that was like, hey, I want you to sell the house, this, that, whatever. And she was, had a certain situation. She's like, I'm just going to do it myself because, I got these neighbors that want to buy the property. And I said, all right, great. I said, what are you going to sell it at? And she's like, well, I think I'm going to sell it, at X. And I go, it's worth like at least 500 more, right? $500,000 more. And she's like, well, how do you figure? And I'm like, okay, you're my friend. I'm just going to tell you this. I don't, it's not about money. It's not about money. It's about the taking care of people. So I explained it to her, so on, everything else. She's like, well, I'm just going to save the costs on it and just get it done this way. And I'm like, all right. So the point is that she would have lost out on, like, let's say 30 grand, gotten $500,000 more, and 500 minus 30. Yeah. $470,000 to not use a realtor.
So
now, I don't know about you, but $470,000.
That's a lot of money.
That's a house.
That's a house.
That's a big house.
And this is one of my pet peeves in real estate is you see all these advertisers out there that will buy your house, I don't care how ugly or how bad a shape, and we'll clean it all out, we'll do everything else. There's always a cost to that stuff. Am I wrong here?
No, I'm going to give you a quick story.
Yeah.
So I had a client that this is really much fire right now to me because I'm so irritated about this. So the client was referred to me from a friend of mine, and she's like, hey, you got to talk to this guy, talk to this guy, talk to this guy. He's older, he's a nice guy, but he had some health problems, things like that. And he had been without his spouse for a number of years, and has gotten to a certain point, and with health problems, he needs to move out, and he needed to sell the house, condo. The condo was at Montrose and Lakeshore, and if you know that area, it's a very good area, and you can get a top dollar for it. So what happens is I sit down with him and so on, and my assumption at that point is he had not taken an offer. So I'm talking to him this, that, whatever. He looks at me and goes, so how would you sell this? And I told him how I would sell it, so on, and all these things. And basically he's like, man, I wish I talked to you before. And I go, what do you mean? And he's like, well, I sold it. I go, sold what? He's like, the condo. I said, what condo are we talking about while I'm sitting here talking to you? I didn't say that, but I said, what condo? And he said, this one. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Well, great. Well, I'm glad I'm here. I'm going to give you some advice. That's good. What did you sell it for? He goes, I don't want to tell you. I was like, uh-oh.
Joey's giggling.
So I got it out of him.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, an iBuyer reached out to me and said, and as soon as he said it, my eyes rolled back in the back of my head.
iBuyer,
Glenview Home or Grandview Homes or whatever. Like
they may be an advertisement.
They are buyers that have cash capital, and they buy it at what is a profit to them, where they could fix, flip, whatever it is, and sell it again. It's respectful business in regards to if you can get that client to see what you're doing.
But there's only so much.
So I'm not going to
money.
knock them and no slander or anything like that. But the fact is that he chose to do this, and when he told me what he was selling it for, I'm like, what? And so, Joey, I'm going to let you take a guess at what you think a 2-bedroom, 1.5, 1,600 square foot flat.
Oh my God.
That's nice.
Is.
That's huge.
Yeah.
I don't even want to guess because I feel like
Come on, it's more
so
fun.
far under. Huh?
It's more fun.
Oh God. 1,600 square foot condo up on the lake at Montrose and Lakeshore.
Pretty
right?
close. Pretty close. It's the last house before you go to Lakeshore. Yes.
Okay. I mean, I don't know what homes are going for in Chicago right now like that, but I got to at least Please, at least freaking 5.
5.
I was gonna go 400.
400.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll go $1 million.
Okay. All you are unrealistic. All right. So here's the deal. This property, I would have sold at probably 330, 340, something like that. Okay.
Well, I hope he sold it for 5.
He got it for 216
Nope, that's a terrible idea.
because
It's not
he decided to
a
do
lot
that.
less.
So when I talked to him, I said, "When did you buy this?" And he goes, "Oh, I signed the contract yesterday." I'm like, "Oh, great. Cash buy, 14 days, so on. I can get you out of this." Reach out to an attorney. I reached out
doubt.
to you. You didn't answer the phone. I remember that, actually.
Thank God. I would be the villain in this story if I'd answered the
Well,
call.
so anyway, long story short, we canceled the contract. We're good to go. This, that, whatever. A week before we're going to close, and I was getting him an extra 100 and what is that? 140,000, 150,000.
That's 2 beers at Soldier Field.
That pretty much. The guy comes back and he's like, "All right, well, we're going to sue you if you don't close to us, blah, 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 whatever." And I'm like, "Wait, we already canceled the contract. What's going on?" There was another contract he signed
Oh my freaking God.
before the other one and didn't tell me and didn't tell the attorney. So anyway, long story short, as I said, sold it or got the money for this or for that number. And then the iBuyer came in. It was already done up because I did everything and put a very small amount in there so I could get extra money for him. And then the buyer comes in. They sell it to the same clients that wanted the property in the first place
But they took the
for
profit.
$30,000 more,
Yeah, they took.
and they bought it. And the fact that my whole story to this is this: all these iBuyers out there, all these people that have capital, all these whatever, blah blah blah, have a professional realtor, please, because getting taken advantage of because you're older and had some health problems and so on, it's just not okay. And the thing is, you can't do anything, and it's. You can't go after the company. It's, it's known as slander. It's known as this. It's known as that. The fact is like, it's so mean that you take advantage of people. And
but that's what we're here for too. All right, this everything you're saying right now is the knowledge part. Knowledge is power, and I'm not going to say that all home inspectors are knowledgeable, or all attorneys and all real estate brokers and mortgage brokers. We're not all knowledgeable. You have to find the people that are. Is where I'm going, and that's where I value all 3 of you.
Well, let me just.
That's big.
Well,
please.
again, though, I just reemphasize because I'm not slandering them.
No.
I'm just saying, like, it's a company, it's a business, and if they can do it and they can get it for a better deal and then sell it for more, I mean, I understand the profit aspect to it, but
it's
I also
a business
feel like
transaction. I get that, but on the same note, so is the person selling that involved in a business transaction.
Right.
So everybody should be trying to make the best business deal for themselves.
Well, the
and
situation,
going in there
Steve, the situation you're describing sounds, predatory to me. There's a place in the world for buyers that want to offer a seller a price that includes taking most, if not all, of the stress of selling the property
Okay, that has value.
off of the seller's shoulders. All right.
yes, it has value if it's valued right.
Where do you draw the line between predatory and offering less but more in the sense
Where's that
of
pendulum?
taking the weight off of someone's shoulders? I can imagine scenarios where someone's trying to offload a property they inherited that they weren't really expecting to, and it's a hoarder property or something like that. That's exactly the scenario where I think an iBuyer comes in and goes, "Look, I will, I'll pay you an amount of money that solves this problem for you, but also that I can turn around, do some work to it, and sell it on for what I need to get profit wise." That's, I think, where that business is not predatory. The scenario that Steve's describing is where someone swoops in. I don't know if the client had solicited these bids or if they had come.
They solicited him.
So if they were just chucking like a shotgun approach offers to anything that was anywhere that they were looking to own real estate and then trying to lowball the living heck out of someone, that's where, I think, you walk into someone's living room and you sort of realize that, you've come with the credentials of a battleship, and they're a fishing vessel. And do you fire on the fishing vessel? Some do. Some, all they see is dollar signs, and they go, "This is going to pay for my next, my next winter home in Cabo." I think most of us would look at that situation and be like, I don't feel good about this.
And I think it's also fair to think about the person who's going to be buying, or company is going to be buying your property. What are their intentions? I mean, I think the person who's going to buy and live in it is different than, let's say, somebody who's going to renovate and resell. If they're looking for a fast turnaround, they're doing it to make up money. That's the bottom line. So they need to turn a profit. Now the question is, how much of that money are you willing to give up? Because that's originally your money, as long as you own the property.
Well, you're the capitalist in the room. I mean, come on, tell me how much money is too much money.
No.
I really don't
Hold
know.
on.
You got to look at your
Before we
value.
go there, I'm gonna redirect that real quick.
Yeah.
Capitalists are one thing in regards to, okay, how do I make the next dollar? What can I do on the side? This, that, whatever. One of the things about Charlie's business, and I will re-emphasize this all day,
I'm afraid.
is
right
that
now.
he does not charge the most. He does not charge the least. He charges what is appropriate. So the fact is that as far as the capitalist aspect to it, what his prices are fair, in my opinion. And I've been doing this for 18 years plus. And I've never come across anyone like him that he's so honest to a fault. And that is what something like I appreciate, especially in my business and for my clients. So the capitalist aspect is, I understand that, but if we're talking about figuring out how to make the next dollar type thing, I don't believe that he's that way. I believe that his company and what he represents is someone who cares.
And I value that, and thank you. That's very kind.
I'm
But
just
I am
saying.
in business to make money.
Yeah,
We all
Conrad
are,
Lo-
obviously.
Going to argue that at all. And I
Conrad
do.
have to make a
Loftus over
living.
here says that we should all treat each other fairly, and it's outrageous that people are out there trying to make as much money as they possibly can. And and when I say such things, I hear the Tetris song in my head, because I'm very much for the worker.
But there's always, it ends up where, my goal is to always to have a happy client, and we prove that happy client by when they leave a review, and when
770 times or something.
Well, almost 2,000. On the different platforms, we're way up there. You're
That's
talking about
incredible.
just one Google thing.
Sorry.
I
I was just impressed by that.
Yeah, and that's fine, but that's how we measure our success. But don't get me wrong, I do want to raise our prices. We're going through that right now, and as the economy goes up, I want to go up, and I want to live a nice lifestyle. But I also want to make sure that we provide one hell of a good value. And that's what I'm hearing from you three when it comes to some is selling their house to, I don't know what the right term, iBuyer I think you used, or flipper comes in there. It's more of a, how much money am I willing to lose for the convenience that Patrick mentioned, and that's where I think the real question is going to be. But you can't answer that question for yourself until you know what is the max that I could get for this property, and then you got to start figuring out if this is a good deal for you, or is it worth a little bit of work.
And that is why a professional is so important when it comes to that.
All
And
the
the other
knowledge.
thing is when you do that, it's not just about the one professional that tells you it should go for $50,000 more, unless the market actually is there.
All right.
So the fact is, people also go into a listing and tell these people what they want to hear,
Yup.
where they can't. They're under promising, they're over delivering and under promising.
I think it's the other way
Or
around.
the other
They're
way
over
around,
promising and under delivering. And
Yeah.
that's
Right.
I've heard that happen a lot of times where real estate agents are coming in, oh yeah, we'll get you $2 million for this $300,000 condo. And it goes on the market for that price, and it sits there, nothing happens, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, maybe we should go down to 330 like all the other guys said.
$2 million from 330. That's
Okay,
a
I'm
big jump.
exaggerating
big
a
price
little
shot.
bit, right? All right.
If the internet's to be believed, let me just add one more thing in there. If the internet's to be believed,
I'm
most
triggering
people,
everybody. I love these questions.
Well, most people seem to believe that they can fairly assess the value of their property. Now, the problem there is that if you go 30,000 too high because you're afraid to leave any money off the table, or God forbid 30,000 too low. Probably rather be 30,000 too low. At least
100%.
I might get a bidding war that corrects my mistake. If I'm 30,000 too high, I'm no man's land, where anyone that would be interested in my property, it's not coming up in the searches. So that's a big pitfall, I think, that people would fall into when they are thinking FSBO. But let me just break it down to the simplest thing, and that is, Steve, let me propose a scenario, and you tell me how likely I am to encounter this as a FSBO seller. I'm a FSBO seller, and I get an offer in my email inbox, and in the offer, so the offer is on the regular contract form, and then in the email they say something along the lines of, since you're not using an agent, we've minus 3% from the offers because you're already saving that money. And give me on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely am I to encounter that exact scenario as a FSBO seller?
You're not.
I'm not?
No, the only difference, the thing you're going to run into is, you're talking about the buyer or the FSBO seller,
I'm
right?
talking about the buyer seeing that it's a FSBO.
Oh, and
they
saying
go,
3%
And I go,
difference
as
in
a
price?
buyer, I go, well, he's already not paying 3% of the purchase price as part of this, as part of the takeaway from this. So I can subtract 3% because they've already saved that money. That money's already in the seller's pocket. And of course, as the seller, you're going, no, but the 3% is supposed to go to me instead of to this.
Everybody
I was thinking you
hypothetical.
were talking the other way around. But
Yeah.
yes, absolutely, you could get those.
So and
But do the math on 3% with the property.
Well, when I talk to people who are buying property that's off market, right? So usually this is where like a tenant is buying a landlord's unit that they've been staying in.
Excuse me.
Most of the time, if not every time, whatever price they've negotiated, they subtract 6% based on the fact that there aren't any agents involved. So those
are
dollars
different
and
scenarios,
cents,
though.
people are fully cognizant of the fact that these percentages are there, and you're also going to be dealing with that kind of headwind against the buyer. Oh, my property is really, really hot, and it's really going to. Okay, I mean, maybe, you're going to likely encounter that. So just be aware that, with all of the work entailed, and Steve, I know it's a lot of work to list and sell property, you may still be getting a lot of buyers that think that your effort is free, and so you should take a 3% cut on the price.
And you know what, Patrick? That's a great example. But however, I'm not a discount broker. So go hire someone else.
He's talking about
Take a discount
FSBO.
broker. No, I'm just saying
you're hearing this differently than the way I'm putting
I'm
it.
addressing two things. First of all, if a seller decides to take or accept a 6% difference on his price because of the fact that he realizes he's not using a realtor, so doesn't have to pay the seller's broker and then whatever he's agreeing to pay, if he was going to pay the buyer's broker or not. The fact is, when it comes to that, the question that you should ask yourself as a FSBO seller is the value where it's supposed to be, or am I leaving money on the table? And probably, I would say about 95% of the time, you don't know how or what your property's worth. You don't look on Zillow or Trillia or whatever.
They do.
Or Realtor.com. Yeah, go ahead. Let me tell you how that works. Take a 500, a 600, an 800, a 200, a 100, and throw it in a blender, and all of a sudden your property is worth $437,580. Okay? Guess what? And you're selling it for $440, and then you're taking a 6%. When I knew I could sell your property at $550, do you think that was a smart idea to be a FSBO?
Steve, are you telling me that I can't take the property down the street and find out the price per square foot and apply it directly to my building? Are you telling me I can't do that?
No, you can do whatever you want. You're going to be wrong.
Right. No, and
was a
this is all
rhetorical question,
good.
Steve.
I know.
I do want to get to
You're getting me
another-
today.
I'm going to switch this around again, and Joey, I need you to take the lead on this one. Somebody's looking to seek a reputable mortgage broker in Chicago to explore the possibility of assuming a loan on a property facing foreclosure.
Good luck.
Oh, God.
Everybody just pushed their microphones away. They're going toes up. So, Joey, give us
Joey,
what
this
you
is
got.
you, buddy.
I mean, it goes right to the beginning. One, I hate assumptions, but two, is the assumption going to help whoever is selling that property? I mean, in that situation, if you have the cash to cover the gap from what you need, then I mean, and it makes sense for the seller, then go after it. But again, if we're facing foreclosure, what kind of liens are we looking at? Because you're going to be having to make sure those are clear, and obviously the seller's not going to be paying for them. So that goes right back to the conversation we had at the top of the hour: is what is it really going to cost you to assume that loan, right? So, it goes a lot deeper than trying to answer that as a simple question. There's a ton of information that you have to do a lot of research to find out if it's going to be worth it. And oh man!
And I know you're not going to
so
give
much.
us all of them,
There's
but
so
can you
much.
give us some of those questions?
What kind of questions do you need to ask?
Yeah.
What kind of liens are on this property? You need to find that out, like literally right away. How much do you owe on the property? Because you're going to have to figure out how you're going to come up with the cash between the balance and the price you're buying it for, right? If it's a small, want to assume a loan that has a 50 grand balance and a 200K purchase price because there's 150K that I have to come up with to make up for the difference. Is that likely the situation in a foreclosure? No, but that there's a lot of research that you have to do before you take that dive into assuming. It's the biggest freaking trigger word in the market.
The assumption of a loan, just to reemphasize what Joey was saying, to assume a loan, I just learned a lot about this. And like Joey was saying, there's so many things that come into play with that. But one of the biggest things is the sellers have to agree that they will go ahead and do it. And most sellers, just like Joey said, it's probably not worth it to them. So they won't do it. And more importantly, if it's a condo, good luck getting that, what is that? What is that?
Warrantable?
Well, yeah, it's warrantable, but it's, there's a site out there that they can look and they can see that you can assume the loan, FHA something. So what's interesting is I was selling a property and it was FHA. It was FHA approved because when they bought it 4 years ago, they bought it at FHA. Well, here's a very important thing about FHA, which Joey will already correct me on.
different from VA, but you're right. Keep going.
Right. That is true. But it's also the fact that FHA actually falls off if you don't renew it into the condo. What is it?
After 2 years, FHA approval falls off. You have to file for reapproval.
So interesting enough, when I got
I
that,
think that's worth saying again.
when I go
You
ahead,
get spot
2
approval.
years?
say it one more time, Joey.
Yeah. So every 2 years, if you're FHA approved, you have to resubmit. You have to pay like the $900 or $1,500 processing fee. The HOA does.
So for an agent to, get a call and they're like, "Hey, you're FHA approved," and so on, and you're sitting going, "I don't think I'm FHA approved. It's a condo." It's not normally what happens. The fact is that you could find out it's FHA approved, or when is the last time they did it. So knowing that it's 2 years is really crucial, and a good agent is going to know those things. And honestly, I was a little floored because when they said it was FHA approved and they bought it 4 years ago, I'm like, I wonder if it's still FHA. And sure enough, it wasn't, because it was after 2 years.
Yep.
So
For what it's worth, VA approvals are good for the life of the HOA.
Really?
They don't fall off. Nope.
That's interesting.
Not at all.
I was just saying, so I learned some. Thank you. When I was
We're here to
a
educate
condo,
you, Charlie.
You are, and I appreciate that. I learned a lot from all three of you.
it takes three of us.
But it's oh my God, it takes more than that. It's the condo that I was living in, and they were adamant about, we are not an FHA approved condo. You cannot get an FHA mortgage, and stuff like that. And I shrugged my shoulders at it, but now I know why. I didn't know that the homeowners association has to reapply every 2 years or
You
something
can get
like
spot approval, Joey, if I'm not
You
mistaken.
can get spot approval, but so there's a caveat to that is if 10% or more of the association is FHA approved, the entire association has to go through the approval process. And spot approval is unlike FHA. It's not like a waiver saying, "Hey, I still want to get an FHA loan." The association, without filing on their own behalf, the association still has to be in good health in terms of what the FHA requires to still get that spot approval. With a VA, if the project gets denied, you find out why it gets denied, and the veteran just files a waiver and says, "I still want to use my VA loan to buy in this project," and you proceed, business as usual, and a denied project. The FHA, you still have the the project still has to meet FHA requirements, even if you're going for a
So
spot.
Joey, are you saying that, all right, I have a client, he wants to buy a condo, but it's not VA approved. How does that work?
So if it has been in the last year or two, I can pull the denial from the web LGY portal. It's where all of our information lives for VA. And I will go straight to the waiver. I will pull it up. I will type out the waiver. I have a template technically, so I'll just copy and paste. I will send it over to the veteran. I will explain what a right of first refusal is, what a leasing restriction is, or whatever the denial reason. Those are the most common too. And I'll explain how that affects them when they go to sell. Because that's what matters, is the VA wants them to understand how it affects them when they go to sell. They will say, hey, okay, let's do this thing. And we have them e-sign the waiver. I send it to the VA. The VA returns sends me a return message saying, okay, we'll guarantee this loan. We're good to go. Proceed with the waiver.
Now, Joey, you can
close.
make.
I've never had a waiver denied, period. And I close more VA condos that are denied than I do approved.
That's great.
Now, Joey, although you are the VA loan nerd, you are able to make other loans like conventional FHA, USDA.
That's a good plug for Joey. Nice
from,
job, Patrick.
From your uncle.
from your uncle. What the hell? All right, I'm going to take.
It's a new
I'm not
one.
even going to let you answer that, Joey. All right, we are running short on time, so I'm going to ask another long question, but this one's going to be aimed at me. All right, somebody's deciding to either purchase or avoid a split face block home in Chicago. All right, and what are the problems with it, and what are the things that they have to check into? So, I know we use in Chicago the term split face block, and what that is when you have two pieces of concrete and they literally take a chisel and cut it in half, and you'll see the rough edges on the outside that's basically showing or exposed to the outside. These are what we call a single width wall that comes in there. So basically it's just going to be an 8-inch wide, cinder block wall that's going to be exposed to the exterior. Typically, they're going to be hollow in the middle. And the biggest problem that we have, and I guess it's a twofold problem. The one is moisture gets sucked into the broken concrete masonry units because we split them in half, so that can actually draw moisture in through those openings, just like a sponge would draw moisture in. And then the other one is going to be condensation that occurs in these things. So when we're hot and humid on the inside of a house and it's freezing cold outside, hot meets cold, dew point is reached, water is formed. I'll be honest, we've run thermal imagers inside a lot of these properties, and they just light up, because you got so much water. It's usually going to be the lower units because gravity's going to take everything there. Now, the solutions that people do, to stop the water from soaking in there, they do have paints that they could put on those brick. It's a clear thing. They do it every 5 years or so. That does help, all right? But it's not a permanent thing, and it's something that is going to have to be budgeted for. And if it's an association, they're going to have to budget for it and get that done every 5 years or so. The other method, which is far more expensive, and when I'm talking about expensive, they've been quoting prices somewhere around 20% of the value of the building, all right? So that's a pretty big deal. And in doing that, you're opening up the whole wall cavity, and you're allowing air to come in there and keep everything vented so that any moisture that happens to occur in there ends up evaporating. And that's how you keep it dry permanently. And those fixes, don't have to be redone, but that upfront cost is pretty intense, all right? I'm going to throw a little plug if you want to do a little research on split face block. Little plug is going to be for Bob Kelly. And the name of the company is Wick Right, and I believe that's spelled WICKRIGHT, and it's a .com. And yeah, I can't encourage you to learn more about these things. So split face block does bring a lot of water in there. There are solutions to it, but it's not something that goes over easy. And I'm sorry that I eat up all the rest of our time because we are out.
Well, I've heard some split opinions about whether you even should whether you even should have split face block sealed because of the fact that you may actually want it to breathe. Once you seal that water in, it's in.
And I believe that the best solution is going to be to vent it, but that's not in everybody's budget. So putting the paint on there, it does help. All right, I agree. with what you're saying. It holds the water that is in there already and doesn't let it get out, because through osmosis it goes both ways. But, if we could
So-
stop more from coming in, we can.
So don't buy a garden unit in a
So-
split-face block building.
I'm not saying that,
That's
but
not
make
what I
sure
was
that
saying.
you get the moisture meters and thermal imagers and make sure that it's not getting water and there's a plan.
So, what I've been told in my, years of doing this and so on, a lot of different things. So it's good to know those extra things to educate clients. The Modak, like the caked on frosting aspect, which is the paint, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
Charlie.
Yeah.
That's every 5 years. See, I was told 8 to 10 years.
I'm sure you'll hear a bunch of people with a bunch of numbers. I'm going to be
Okay.
Mr. Conservative
Sure.
because if I tell you 10 years and water's coming in 8, I'm the bad guy. I never want to be the bad guy. If I tell you 5 years and you choose to wait 8 years,
That makes sense.
I'm still not the bad guy. I would rather wear the belt, the suspenders, and put a rope around that waist too.
Mr.
right.
Conservative. He finally
Mr.
comes out with it.
Conservative.
So let me ask you this.
Steve, I'm sorry, but we are out of
All
time,
right.
and maybe
All
let's
right.
continue this next time.
That's good stuff.
Special thank yous. I'm not even going to let these guys give their information. Special thank you to Steve Davis. Phone number 312-513-6314. Patrick Loftus on all social media at Loftus_law, especially Instagram. That's where you're really going to enjoy everything that he does. Joey Matthews, learn as much as you can about the mortgage world. He will help you. In fact, all three of these guys will help you. 630-235-2405. And again, my name is Charlie Bellefontaine. I own Chicagoland Home Inspectors. Our phone number is 312-544-91.